We are live. Hello there, Total Fitness Bodybuilders. Lee Hayward here with the Total Fitness Bodybuilding video chat for Friday the 13th. Friday, October the 13th. Welcome. Glad to have you joining in. And for those of you who are regulars to our Total Fitness Bodybuilding video chat, it looks a bit different because I'm trying something different here today. I have my GoPro set up as a webcam, and I figured, hey, it's a late model GoPro, and it's probably a better quality camera than the built-in camera that I normally use on my laptop. So I'm just curious now if this is coming through loud and clear on your end, if you can hear me and see me and all that good stuff. So if you can, let me know. I'm also got an external mic, external camera. So I literally do need to do a legit audio video test here right now to make sure that this is working before we get into our live stream. All right, so let's see. And again, we are streaming simultaneously from Facebook as well as the Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel. So Total Fitness Bodybuilding Facebook page, Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel, streaming through here. And let us see if this is coming through. And all right. Lee Dunnigan, regular, saying loud and clear. Appreciate it. Andy saying it's coming through loud and clear. BR4HM5 says it's loud and clear. I'm assuming it's loud and clear. Loud and clear on YouTube from Jason. Thank you. Thank you. Sal's joining in loud and clear. And Darren says, very good. Chat a little tiny. Okay. I'm not sure if my setup has any impact on the chat window, but appreciate it. I mean, the feedback. So again, for those of you who are regulars, you could help me out with this. Is this better or worse than what we normally do? I mean, obviously, I'll watch the replay afterwards, and I can kind of decide for myself if I like it or not. But I just wanted to try something different because I used to get, well, I don't used to. I do get people complaining that the camera quality is not good on those live streams. And I agree. I mean, it's just a built-in webcam on the laptop, which honestly, for a relatively late model MacBook Pro, I was a bit disappointed because, it's not a cheap laptop and the camera sucks. It looks like I'm shooting this on a potato. And actually, I have an older laptop. I don't know if you can, let me just hide that window there. I have my older laptop next to me, which that's a 2015 MacBook Pro, and I have another one that I just bought a couple years ago. But I very often use the older one because the webcam on the older one is better than the webcam on the new one, right? So it's kind of weird how that works. But anyway, hopefully this webcam is clearer and better. But again, we'll test and see. But as long as the audio comes through, that's the most important thing. So we can have ourselves a chat. All right, so the way these video chats work, for those of you who are brand new, I want to welcome you. It's always nice to have new people tuning in. And the way it works is I'm going to be hanging out here for the next hour, answering questions and topics of discussion related to fitness and nutrition, health and wellness, any specific challenges you may have with your workouts, your eating plan, building muscle, losing fat, whatever it is that you wanted to discuss, fitness, nutrition, health, and wellness related, type those questions and topics of discussion into our chat window. And again, if you're on YouTube, there should be a chat window to the side. If you're on Facebook, it's probably the comments below the video, but somewhere in the vicinity of this video, you can type in your questions and comments and all that kind of stuff, and I should be able to see them coming through on my end. All righty, and I actually had a question come through earlier from one of our regulars. This one, I'm just going to pop it open here on my screen. He sent me this through a message on Facebook, and that's something that you can do because, let's be honest, these video chats, obviously the times don't work for everyone. I kind of get that. It works for me, but I know it doesn't work for everyone. So this is from Andrew. Andrew is one of our regulars. But he doesn't tune in live because he's over in the UK, and over in the UK, it's getting pretty late. So what he does, he sends in questions in advance and then catches the replay afterwards, which is totally cool. So, I mean, you have that option. And I'm just going to read out Andrew's message. He sent me this literally just a few hours ago there on Facebook Messenger. He says, Lee, I was wondering if you could answer a question for me on your live stream later today. He's doing a push-pull leg split, and he says for his push workout, currently doing bench presses, flies, shoulder presses, side lateral raises, and tricep extensions. He says, my chest always gets sore from this workout, and it seems to grow, which is good. Says, my shoulders and triceps don't. I was thinking of adding in some dips to the routine to strengthen the triceps, adding in another bench movement. It seems when a muscle gets sore for me, it grows, but when the muscles never get sore, i.e. my chest or shoulders and triceps in this case, they don't get sore and they don't seem to improve. All right, that's an interesting point. And this is something everyone's going to deal with from time to time. Like, you're going to notice certain body parts respond better than others. Even if you're doing equal volume, equal intensity, equal focus, whatever you want to say, certain muscle groups are probably going to respond better than others. And I'll use myself as an example. Like, I know back when I started training, especially like when you start training, that's when you notice your body changing, especially if you start when you're younger and you're primed for growth. Because I started training in my early teens. So throughout my teenage years and then into my early 20s, I could really see the body changing. I mean, obviously it's going through adolescence, puberty, so it's changing that way. But then when you combine that with structured weight training, you're going to really maximize those gains. So you can make rapid gains in your early years if you take advantage of it. Now, if you miss that boat, it doesn't mean progress is not possible, but just giving you a heads up, for those young folks watching this, take advantage of your early years, your teens and your early 20s, because those are the magic years where you can really make some amazing progress if you are consistent. But for me, I noticed with my workouts, legs grew well, chest grew well, back grew well, arms and shoulders, nothing. Like, even now, my arms and shoulders lag behind the rest of my physique. Like, when I look at, like, I've got a thick torso, I've got thick legs, and I still got skinny arms and shoulders. Like, genetically, they just don't grow to the same degree as my other body parts. That's just the way it is for me. So I've had to really prioritize arms and shoulders just to get any results there at all. So I can kind of relate to what Andrew's going through there, because I was in a similar situation. Chest grew well, but arms and shoulders kind of lag behind. And what I would recommend is breaking those body parts up. So instead of combining them together, and even the order that he has, because he's training chest, shoulders, and triceps. Well, chest is what's growing. Shoulders and triceps are what's struggling. So first off, you could reverse the order, right? Train your weakest body parts early on when you're strongest and you can put the most effort in. And then your strongest body parts, the ones that don't need as much effort or don't need as much focus, put those towards the end of your workout. So, like, structure your workouts in that way where you're prioritizing where the attention needs to go. Don't put the attention in the strong areas, and then when you're already fatigued and exhausted at the end of the workout, and then I'm going to throw in some exercises for my weakest body parts. Like, you're just creating an even bigger imbalance doing it that way. So reverse the order of your workouts is one thing that can help to spur on some growth in those stubborn muscle groups. But ideally, I would even separate it. So instead of having a push day where you're training all your pushing muscles, the chest, shoulders, triceps, break it up and probably have a day where you're just training shoulders, or just training shoulders and triceps together. And then, I mean, this could be a detailed conversation. Obviously, I'd need to discuss this with Andrew to kind of figure out what works best for him in his situation. But I'm just throwing out some ideas here. But I think if you had a dedicated day for your weaker body parts, that would really help. And more isolation for him. So in the case, like, he's thinking of adding in an extra bench press and adding in dips. Well, bench presses and dips, even though they do indirectly work the shoulders and triceps, that's still primarily chest, right? If chest is the strongest body part and you add in more bench presses and dips, guess what's going to happen? You're going to get more chest stimulation. So I think more shoulder work, different shoulder press variations, different lateral raise variations, like side lateral raises, front raises, rear delt work, and different variations. Like, you can use dumbbells and machines and cables and resistance bands, especially for the shoulder work, to really see what works the best for you. But you need to put in more isolated work for those stubborn body parts, more work for the shoulders, more work for the triceps. And in fact, in his tricep workout, he has one single exercise. He's doing a tricep extension. Like, you need to bump up the volume there, especially if that's an area that's not growing for you. So more volume, more focus on those stubborn areas. And then the stronger muscle groups, like, you can put them into like a maintenance phase and just put them on the back burner. Like, as long as you're not losing gains in those areas, that's good enough to allow your energy reserves to focus on those stubborn areas. And a program that I personally put together that really dives into this in detail is the Blast Your Biceps program. It's available. You can go to blastyourbiceps.com. I mean, it's an old school ebook program that I wrote back in the, when did I put that together? Back in the early 2000s. So it's been around for a while, but it's still just as effective today as it was back then. Like, it's not like the human body has evolved over the last 10, 15 years, that the exercises that worked back then are not going to work today, right? It still works, right? But I'm just putting it in perspective. I mean, by internet days, it's ancient, but by practical, hey, is this going to actually help you build muscle and build balance into your physique? Yeah, it still works. So the Blast Your Biceps program, and that's the premise behind that, is it's arm specialization. So even though it's called Blast Your Biceps, is really biceps and triceps, because that was my stubborn area that I needed to focus on. And I found that what I did is I had 2 arm workouts a week, and each one were different. So one was a heavier, lower rep, more power-based arm training workout. The other was higher repetitions, lighter weight, more time under tension-based arm workout. So you're getting, some more fast twitch muscle fibers in the heavy one, more slower twitch muscle fibers and volume in the lighter one. And we did that twice a week. So let's just say like Mondays and Thursdays or something like that. And then a couple other days a week, that's when I hit all my other body parts. So I kind of like batch group the other muscle groups into 2 separate workouts. And I was only hitting all the other muscle groups once a week, maybe with only 1 or 2 exercises per muscle group. But that wasn't the focus. Like, put the other body parts on maintenance while we prioritize our adaptive energies and our recovery ability to specialize in the stubborn body parts. And that's one thing that you can do here to really help to bring up those stubborn body parts, is to reorganize your training so that you're prioritizing the areas that need it, and the areas that are strong and responding well, put them on a maintenance program. And do that for a few months. Like, dedicate at least 3 months or more. I mean, but I would say a minimum of 3 months, so that you can really give your body time to adapt, respond, and grow to that new style of training, and see some progress, see some visual progress in those stubborn areas. Because a lot of times, if you continue doing what you're doing, you're just going to make the problem worse, because you're still prioritizing the strong areas, and you're still neglecting or not optimizing the weaker areas, even in just the order of the workouts. So you need to really change things around so that you're giving those stubborn body parts more emphasis and more focus. And if you want to see a real world example of that, head on over to blastyourbiceps.com and you can get a copy of that ebook. I mean, it's a valuable read. There's some killer content there that could certainly help you from that bodybuilding hypertrophy style of training, because that's what it's geared for. It's geared for pure bodybuilding hypertrophy, especially for people who have stubborn body parts. And even if arms are not your stubborn body part, you could still take those same training principles and apply to other muscle groups as well. But that's Andrew's question there. All right, so let's come back to our main chat window here. Let's see who else we got joining in. So again, for those of you tuning in, if there's anything that you would like to discuss, feel free to go ahead now and type that into our chat window, and I'll do my best to answer these questions as they come through. Can't promise I can do them all justice. I mean, I don't claim to be a know-it-all, right? Even though I've been around the fitness game for over 30 years, competing and coaching and doing this for quite a while. Like, this is a passion project of mine, but I don't claim to be a know-it-all. So if you do stump me, or there's something here that I don't feel I'm qualified to answer, I will not hesitate to let you know that I don't know, but I might be able to point you in the right direction to somebody who can, because I do have a fairly large network in the fitness industry. So I might be able to point you in the right direction if I can't help you. So let's see. We have Andy joining in from over in the UK. Getting pretty late over in the UK, so welcome for joining in. We have BR4HM5 from Burn CH. Burn C. I don't know where is CH. Anyway, welcome. I'm not sure where CH is off the top of my head. Right. I'm not the best with acronyms. Let's see. We got Andy's got a question saying, I've been eating gluten bread. I'm not sure if you mean gluten-free bread. Probably. I've been eating gluten bread in the mornings with peanut butter and a banana. Found your hack yesterday of peanut butter powder that has less calories, the PB2 or the PB and me powder peanut butter. I think that's what you're referring to. Should be getting some tomorrow from Amazon to try. Awesome. Yeah. That is it. For those of you who are trying to maximize fat loss, cut back on excess calories, especially fat calories, PB2 or PB and me is a great peanut butter hack because what it is, it's dehydrated peanut butter powder. Now, it doesn't taste as good as regular peanut butter. I'm going to be honest about that. Like, it's not as good, but it's good enough. All right, it's good enough, and it can bridge the gap between like eliminating peanut butter entirely or having a better, healthier alternative. And what I do with the powder peanut butter, because it does taste a little bland, and a lot of the store-bought peanut butters, they've got sugar and salt added to them to jazz up the flavor a bit. So what I do with my PB powder peanut butter is I put a packet of artificial sweetener, like a packet of stevia or whatever artificial sweetener of your choice, whether it's stevia, Splenda, monk fruit, sugar twin, or whatever. Just get an artificial sweetener of your choice. I'm not going to go into the debate about artificial sweeteners, but get one of your choice, your personal favorite. Put a packet of that in there, and also get some salt, like just table salt or sea salt, whatever. Again, whatever your salt of choice is. I'm not going to get into a debate over salt because people have passionate feelings about artificial sweeteners and the so-called best salt, but I just use plain old sea salt and stevia. That's my two choices. And I put a little bit of that in there and then mix up the powder peanut butter with water. So you rehydrate, and you don't need much water, right? That's one thing you'll learn as you're mixing it up, because you can water it down and then you're basically got like a peanut butter soup, which ain't good. You want a little bit of water so it's still thick and peanut butter texture, but that added sweetness and saltiness makes it taste so much better, right? It gives it a more real peanut butter flavor. And then when you put that on your bread or on your banana or whatever you're putting peanut butter on, it really can help to bridge the gap between the real peanut butter, which obviously tastes good, and then the low fat powdered peanut butter. It's really a good hack, and that's something that I do myself, and I find you can slash your calories dramatically because I think like 85% of the fat is removed. There's still trace amounts of fat in the powder peanut butter, but it's way less than the regular peanut butter. So you get the taste and satisfaction, and with a fraction of the fat and calories. All right, what else we got there? Let's see. We have, okay, I'm just going through here. Art is joining in. Hello, Art. Nice to have you joining in. Art's a regular. We've got Rick joining in. Hello, Rick. Rick's a member of our Muscle After 40 VIP coaching group. Glad to have you joining in. We have Robert. The corner has a curve. I guess you're talking about my lovely rounded desk here. I like this because you can kind of just maneuver around and get stuff done. Having a curved desk. All right, yeah, you got the weird wide angle lens there with the GoPro. What else we got there? We have, okay, BR4HM5, Brahma, a German composer. Okay, gotcha. I had no idea. I had no idea about that. Well, welcome to our chat. Sorry, audio, tiny. I don't know. Is the audio coming through? Meaning, is the audio not loud? I've been flapping my gums here for a while. For those of you who are watching right now, is the audio coming through loud and clear? I know I asked this earlier, and some people said it was, but for those of you, I just want to double check, because this would kind of suck if I'm flapping the gums and nobody's hearing what I'm saying. So if you're watching right now, is this coming through loud? Do I need to turn the volume up, or is it good? All right, just going to see here now if it is coming through, because I'm using a totally different setup, different mic, different camera. So I don't want, right? Got to make sure that this is coming through. Okay. Loud and clear, loud and clear. Okay. So if someone's having audio issues, it might be on your end too. All right. Let's see. Where was I? So that's Darren. He's saying audio is tiny. I guess that means the audio is low. Maybe there's a way that you can crank it up on your end. I'm not sure. The screen is a wider view, but who cares? We can see your Yoda. It is a wider view. Yeah. All right. Enough about the screen. Let's see. And it's not Yoda. It's Goguru, right? You got to get your Star Wars facts right. Like, come on. Go back and watch The Mandalorian. Like, it's the same species. Maybe a descendant of Yoda. I'm sure that'll come around. It hasn't unfolded yet. Like, we're still trying to figure out where Goguru came from in the series, in The Mandalorian. But we would assume he's a descendant of Yoda, some way, some shape, some form, right? Whether it's a son or a grandson or a somebody. Right? This was a Christmas gift from Harvey, so he hangs out with me, right? When I need some help, he uses the force and gets shit done. Actually, looks like I put you back in your corner there, bud. You're falling over. There we go. All right. He sits there in the corner. All right. Moving on. Art's joining in. Deadlift, conventional or sumo. Right? 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It depends. What's your personal preference? When I was training for powerlifting, I would incorporate both, because I find both variations can help complement one another. But I was always stronger with a conventional deadlift. Some people are the opposite. Some people are stronger with sumo, and it all depends on your individual body structure, your body mechanics, your leverages. It's not a cut and dry. Like, I always, if I was going to max out, I could always pull heavier with a conventional versus a sumo. Now, they were close, but I would say like maybe 85, 90%. I could get 85, 90% of my conventional in a sumo stance, but I could always pull heavier with a conventional. But I did like doing sumos as well, because it just activates different muscles. Sumos tend to get more hips, and you're more upright, so there's more leg drive, more hips. The conventionals, more spinal erectors, glutes, and hamstrings. So again, you can incorporate both in your workouts, but it's a totally different exercise. Even though it's called a deadlift, it's two totally different exercises. You're hitting different muscles, different angles, different movement pattern. So, just treat it like that. It's almost like saying, hey, should I do squats or leg presses? Well, I mean, both are good, but they're two totally different exercises, and one can complement the other. It's not an either or. It's just two different exercises. All right, moving on. We have Rob saying, would you recommend a 5x5 with cardio or a push-pull legs and cardio for someone looking to lose a good amount of weight but wanting to keep some muscle mass? It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. And I'm going to break that down. The weight training is to build the muscle / maintain the muscle. That's what the weight training is. It's the cardio and the nutrition that's going to take care of the body fat. So whatever you personally favor. I mean, now I will say this. If you're doing heavy power training and you're in a calorie deficit and you're doing a lot of cardio, you're not going to see the same gains with your strength as if you were in a calorie surplus and not doing as much cardio, right? So that's going to take a toll on your strength. But you got to look at the bigger picture. What is it you're trying to do? If your main goal is to lose body fat and get leaner, then you need to focus on that, right? And so prioritizing the cardio, prioritizing the nutrition, even if you have to sacrifice a little bit of strength in the process, it's worth it in the long run. So that's the way it is when bodybuilders are getting ready for competition. And I like using bodybuilding as an example because they're the masters of fat loss. Like nobody in a sport or activity or whatever is going to get as lean as a bodybuilder or physique competitor, but because there's all the different divisions these days, but same idea. Nobody's going to get as lean, but bodybuilding and physique competition, it's not a performance sport, meaning you don't get judged on how heavy you lift, how fast you run, how whatever. It's not performance. It's who looks the best in their underwear, right? So it's more or less a beauty competition. And of course, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? If you consider ripped and jacked beautiful, then so be it. But it's a who looks the best in their underwear competition. That's what bodybuilding and physique is. So the strength and the athletic performance, that can suffer in effort to try and get ultra lean and ultra shredded and look your best. And you will see guys do that because when bodybuilders are on stage, they're far from peak fitness. Like their strength is down, their cardio capacity is down, their stamina, everything is down, but their body fat is also rock bottom down and they look ultra lean and shredded. And that's what is needed to place high in bodybuilding. So you have that balance. And this is something I have the challenging issues with when I'm dealing with athletes who want to lose body fat, because now we have to, okay, we want to lose body fat, but we don't want to sacrifice athletic performance. And it's a different approach. And sometimes we have to be more conservative with the nutrition, more conservative with the calorie deficit, because you don't want to dip it too low where, yeah, you dip it low and the fat loss is faster, but also the sacrifice in strength and athletic performance and stamina is greater as well. Because if someone's training for sports performance, or that is a priority, you want to balance it out, and it can be tricky. Like when it comes to bodybuilding and physique competition, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because a lot of us look to bodybuilders and physique athletes as the role models for fat loss. And what they're doing, it works amazingly well for the short term, but it's not really sustainable or the healthiest option long term. So you have to look at your own situation and your own priorities and adjust the process based on what it is you're trying to achieve. Because a bodybuilder will suffer it out in the short term to get ripped for competition, because they know as soon as that contest is over, they can go back to somewhat normal. Like they can bump up the calories, they can regain some body fat again, and they can go back to a quote unquote normal lifestyle, if you will, or normal for them anyway, right? Everyone's a bit weird if you're doing bodybuilding, but more normal. Like, okay, they're not in a calorie deficit anymore. They could be, they can start eating more and adjusting the training so that they actually start making gains versus losing strength in the gym. And you need to factor that in there, because a lot of times, when you go on those crazy extreme low calorie cutting diets, yeah, you can strip away the body fat, but you feel hungry, you feel irritable, your strength and energy goes down. It's not enjoyable. So if you're looking for long-term sustainable results and also improving your strength and athletic performance in the process, it takes a more conservative approach. And this is the approach we follow now within the whole Muscle After 40 blueprint. And in that program, and in fact, you can download a copy of the PDF that explains this whole system. I put a link to it in the description below if you want to go check it out. But in that system, I explain the drawbacks of the traditional, I'm going on a cut program versus this sustainable long-term fat loss and a healthy lifestyle approach. And it's like chalk and cheese. It really is. Like of course there are some similarities, but I mean, the approach and the ultimate goal is different. Like we're not trying to just, lose body fat at all costs. We want to lose fat while enjoying the process and actually improving our health and fitness and wellness in the process, and not just, I'm getting shredded at all costs, right? The hell with the muscle and the strength and the athletic performance. And I don't care if I suffer, right? It's only a short-term thing anyway. So you have to have a different mindset, because if you're just suffering it out in the short term, as soon as you run out of willpower, you're going to go back to the old habits and then regain all the weight back again. and be back to square one, just as fat as ever. And it's like, why did I suffer it out for what? Now, in a bodybuilding competition, and in their point of view, they suffered it out because they could get a trophy and a handshake at the end of the competition, and they got some cool photos. But from someone who's doing this for a lifestyle, what's the point of, okay, I lost 50 pounds on this crazy hardcore cutting diet, and then I couldn't stick to it, and then I regained the 50 or even more back. So, you know, a year from now, I'm just as fat as I was before I started. What was the point of all this? Right? Because yo-yo diet, right? People go back and forth. So you need to think of how can you do this and sustain it long term and actually enjoy the process. So that's the secret, and that's the difference from, you know, the cutting from a bodybuilding point of view and the cutting from a health and fitness and lifestyle point of view. But to really get back to your question there, as far as, hey, what's the best weight training program? You could cycle back and forth between them. And a lot of our coaching students who are going through the Muscle After 40 program, we do that. Like, we might start off, for example, like with a total body workout 3 days a week. Like a lot of people, especially the people who are coming back to the gym after a layoff or starting brand new, let's just go with a total body workout 3 days a week. Once they start to plateau with that, maybe we bump them up to an upper lower body split, or maybe a push-pull leg split. And we'll do that for several weeks, or maybe even a few months, you know, until the progress starts to slow down and they go through that adapt, grow, plateau. Like every training program, this is the cycle that everybody goes through, regardless if you're a beginner or advanced or whatever. You start a new program, and in the process of going through that, your body has to adapt to that stimulation. So you adapt. As you're adapting, your body grows. Once you've gone through that adapt, grow phase, eventually it's going to start to plateau. Like it's going to start to go stale, where you're not getting the same results as you once did. And when that happens, then that's the ideal time to change it up and try something different, whether it's a different workout split entirely, different style of training entirely, or maybe it's just a different set and rep pattern. Maybe you're changing up some of the exercise selections or the order of your workouts, but you got to create some change in order to start this whole adapt, grow, plateau phase all over again. And this is something that you're constantly going to be going through. And that's why there's no perfect program. Like if there was one plan that was head and shoulders above every other plan, then everyone would do it, you know, and the weight training would be so simple, because like we'd all just do the same thing, right? We'd all be on this one perfect program, but the perfect program doesn't exist. And that's why you'll see some people doing different programs and then bouncing from different programs to another, is because they're trying to chase that adapt, grow, plateau and stay on top of it. And if you're aware of how your body responds, as soon as you start to plateau, and how you know you're plateauing, there's two key signs. The obvious one is your strength is going down. So like your bench press, for example. Let's use bench press because that's the ego exercise. Everyone knows their bench press for the most part. So, hey, I could bench press 200 pounds for 10 reps. Now I'm struggling to get 8 reps with it. What the heck's going on here? I can't even get the same reps as I used to. Okay, when your strength starts to go down, or it's just not going up, that could be a sign of plateau. Like you're stuck for several weeks and you're just not seeing any change. That's a sign that you're hitting a plateau. Another sign of a plateau, especially with the strength training, is maybe you're just getting bored of it. Like your motivation dwindles. And very often strength and motivation go hand in hand, because if you're making strength gains, your motivation is usually high. But if the strength gains are dwindling and the motivation is dwindling, it's like, this sucks. You know, I'm bored. I don't want to do this anymore. Maybe it's time to change it up. And you just need to change it up from a variety point of view, just to kind of spur on some, you know, more, not only physical stimulation, but mental stimulation. And there's multiple ways to do this. Like sometimes even just joining a different gym, having a new training partner, you know, just change it up somehow, and, you know, provide unique stimulation that way. And, you know, a new program can also provide that unique stimulation. But the motivation and the strength gain. So if you find your motivation is down, your progress is down, and it's just like, man, I just feel like I'm beating my head against the wall, spinning my wheels here, that's a sign that you could change it up. So maybe you're doing the 5x5 and eventually it's just like, this is going nowhere. Then you might want to change it up to a push-pull legs, or vice versa, or some other programs. I mean, there's a gazillion different programs out there. and they all have pros and cons. You know, like everything works, but nothing works forever, right? Like that's the key phrase. I remember hearing that from the late Louis Simmons, because I used to follow a lot of his content when I was training for powerlifting, especially. But you know, like he was a unique guy, but he had some, you know, brilliant concepts. I mean, it was kind of rough around the edges, but it worked. And one of the things that he said was everything works, but nothing works forever. And they constantly cycle through different exercises and just to provide that unique muscle stimulation, you know, because instead, like when they hit a plateau in a certain movement, instead of beating their head against the wall, always trying to get better and better, but you're just stuck. They change the movement. They do a different exercise and make new gains in that exercise. And then when that one hit a plateau, then they change it and do another one. And then when that hit a plateau, they change it and do another one. And then eventually they could come back full circle to the original exercise that they were plateaued at. And after going through multiple phases of different exercises and building strength in different planes of motion and stuff, when they came back to that original exercise that they hit a plateau in, that was unique muscle stimulation. So they could start the whole process over again. And you could keep your body going. So you could have a series of programs laid out and go through that cycle. Like once you hit a plateau with the 5x5, switch to the push-pull legs. Once you hit a plateau with that, switch to something else, you know, whatever. And have a series of different programs. And you could like literally cycle through them. And each time you come back around, it's going to be unique muscle stimulation based on where you are at that stage of the game. And you could literally keep that process going long term. And I mean, I used to do that myself, especially back in the day when I was, you know, competing in both bodybuilding and powerlifting. And the way that I used to do it was my in-season bodybuilding would be off-season powerlifting. My off-season bodybuilding would be in-season powerlifting. You know, they kind of complemented one another. But anyway, I know that was a long-winded answer, but hopefully you got what you needed out of it. I get the gift of gab sometimes, and I just go off on a tangent here, but hopefully you get some insights out of all of that. We've got Alex joining in. Welcome, Alex. Glad to have you tuning in. We've got Darren joining. Says, you were a legend during the COVID lockdown. The home training videos were invaluable. Cool. Glad you appreciated those. Yeah. And they were quite popular too. And I guess it kind of was like the perfect storm in a way, because everybody's sitting around the house during lockdown. And hey, it was a virtual social interaction and a virtual workout. But yeah, there was a lot of feedback to those videos for sure. For those of you who don't know what the heck what I'm talking about here, is like during the whole lockdown when the gyms closed and everything, you know, the excrement hit the fan, if you will. I was doing a live workout every single day, or most days. I'm sure there's a few days I missed, but most days during, like for months on end, I was doing like body weight and bands and dumbbell workouts and stuff that you could do at home just to keep fit. And I was doing it partly for my own sanity, you know, to keep myself on track, because it was motivating for me knowing, hey, I'm going to actually do a live stream video. So it was a live workout, right? I set up the live stream and do a whole live workout series. And there's all the recordings of those are still up on the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Facebook page if you want to go check them out. Well, Ray's joining in. Welcome, Ray. Glad to have you. J.E. is joining in saying, Lee, do front squats have any benefit over the back squats? It's kind of similar to a question we had earlier, you know, sumo deadlift versus conventional deadlift. It's two different exercises. They work similar muscle groups, but they work different. Front squats are harder, right? I'll just be up front. Front squats are harder. You're not going to lift as heavy. It's going to be more challenging. The leverages are not as ideal with the front squat versus a back squat. It's also harder to get into that position, whether you're holding the barbell across your shoulders like an Olympic lifter, or you're doing the arms in front of you like some bodybuilders do. But it's hard to first just do a front squat, but it's also harder leverage wise because the weight is in front, and it's the more of the tension tends to be on the quadriceps, and it just throws off. Like your core activation changes entirely from a front squat to a back squat, and the leverages of the exercise change entirely. Again, both work. Both are great, phenomenal exercises, but you'll lift heavier and probably feel more comfortable with a back squat. So you got to have to judge, like, what is it you're trying to achieve? Obviously for someone like an Olympic weightlifter, front squats have huge benefits because that is the key exercise that they need to build the foundation if they're going to be doing, the clean and jerk and snatch and the overhead lifts, because that gets them into position to do those lifts. From a bodybuilding general fitness point of view, you don't really need to do front squats unless you enjoy them. I mean, if you enjoy them, by all means, but like a lot of bodybuilders don't necessarily do front squats because it is a hard, awkward exercise. And if you have a lot of mass in the upper body, especially, it can be harder to get into position for that exercise. So very often bodybuilders will tend to do back squat as their primary movement. But, it's like 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I mean, you can try them both. But from a practical point of view, like, you can build big legs with back squats. You can build big legs with front squats. You can build big legs by cycling both back and forth. But if you have a preference, one feels better and one feels worse, then do the one that feels better. And I would assume that will probably be the back squat for most people. Unless you're a unicorn and you just, for some reason, the front squat works really well, which would be the exception, not the rule. But if that's the case and you really enjoy front squats, then do them. Another time when front squats would be advantageous too is from an athletic performance point of view, like football players, wrestlers, MMA fighters, whatever, like, because it kind of puts you more into that position where I think there's probably a better carryover from a functional strength point of view, because you think like, okay, you're supporting the weight in the front, the weight is throwing you forward more and you have to balance it. I just think from an athletic performance point of view, like I'm thinking football players and wrestlers and something like that, the front squats may have a slight edge carryover from a functional strength point of view versus the back squat. Now, again, both are still going to help, but I think that will be a unique situation where front squats could be having some benefits. But from general health and fitness and stuff and just hypertrophy, both work. What else we got there? Brams saying, my calves are not very big. I train them 3 times a week. Would you suggest Arnold's method? After every chest set, immediately a calf set. You could try it. First off, you're training 3 times a week. That's a lot. Like that is a lot for a muscle group. And I'm just going to chat for a bit and kind of elaborate on this. First off, we all have body parts that are going to respond better than others. All right. Like we mentioned that earlier, like one of the guys, I think it was Andrew, the first question of the show, was talking about like shoulders and triceps were his stubborn body parts. Calves are a stubborn body part for a lot of people. And you'll see this even amongst elite athletes and pro bodybuilders. Like there are so many bodybuilders out there I've seen over the years, like chest, shoulders, arms, quads, lats, like, just these massive upper bodies, even sometimes massive thighs, and then calves is just like, chicken legs. That is very common. It's more common to see chicken legs than it is to see someone with massive, well-developed calves. So you're not alone with this. That's what I'm getting at. Like there's been a lot of very successful athletes and physique and bodybuilder competitors and everything else who've struggled building calves. So that's a very common weakness. Now, part of it would be the training, because let's face it, like when someone is starting training in their early days, having huge calves is not very sexy. Like what I mean, like you want the chest, you want the abs, you want the arms, like you want the beach body muscles, right? You want to be able to like take your shirt off and look impressive. That's, those are the muscles that most people want to train, are those show off beach body muscles. The calves are kind of like the aftermath. It's like, oh, when I look at my physique as a whole, now I have these glaring weaknesses, right? I actually need to train those things, right? They've been laying dormant for years. They need training. So if you've neglected calves, especially in the early phases of training, they've missed out on the newbie gains, if you will, right? So they're probably not going to respond as well. So that could be part of the reason why some people have poor calves and big in other body parts is just, an imbalanced approach right from the get-go. But it's also a genetic point of view because some people just have less muscle cells and less muscle volume in their calves, right? I mean, like that's, I'm sure, the reason why my arms and shoulders lag behind. I mean, it's not from lack of effort. It's just there's not as much muscle mass there. Now, I'm the opposite. My calves, for whatever reason, I've got big calves. My mother has big calves, right? And I kind of inherited them from her. And I've always had big calves. And right now, like I rarely do any direct calf work, but my calves are still big. Now, they get indirect work from cardio and cycling and things like that. But you won't see me in the gym very often standing calf raises and seated calf raises and whatever, because I just don't need to. Like my calves are, by proportion standards, they're too big, right? I mean, they're way bigger than my arms. And if you're looking for ideal measurements, you want to have your calves, biceps, and neck in proportion. Like if you had the equal measurements for calves, biceps, and neck, like that would be good proportion all around. So again, getting back to your question there, it's very common for people to have smaller calves. And one of the first things I would recommend is increase the frequency. You're already doing that 3 times a week. You could argue, okay, can you bump it up to even more? But if you're training them hard 3 times a week, I think that's the most, because you still want to have that time to rest, recover, and grow between workouts. So you hit them hard, have a full day of rest in between, and then you hit them again. Like training them beyond 3 days a week, you could try it and just see how your body responds, but I don't know if that's necessarily the answer that's going to help to spur on new growth in the calves. As far as the Arnold's method of training calves after chest and all this, that's just a way to sneak in extra calf volume, but you're already training them 3 days a week, so I don't think that's a big deal. One thing that I would emphasize for you is, how are you training your calves? Like if we were sitting down having a one-on-one conversation, or we were in the gym together, that's one thing I'd want to know, because a common mistake a lot of people make with calf work is not training them through the full range of motion. And just look at the calves from a practical point of view. They're a very tough, dense muscle. They're used to a lot of volume because every time you take a step, you're doing like a little mini calf raise. And it's always in that mid-range. So when you're walking, like you never get a full stretch and you never get a full peak contraction. Like every time you're taking a step and you're walking around, you're doing your stuff, you're getting little mid-range calf raises, right? Like up and down, a little tiny bit. In order to really stimulate the calves and to provide that unique muscle stimulation, you want to get outside that mid-range. So when you're doing calf raises, like full stretch, like let your toes, hook onto the edge of the calf raise machine, and then let your heel sink all the way down as far as you can so that you feel the stretch. You want those muscles to stretch out in the bottom. Hold that for a second in the bottom. Pause in the stretch. Like let those suckers stretch. And then go right up onto the very tops of your tippy toes, like, right up on the balls of your feet, and squeeze and contract your calves. Squeeze them hard at the top. Hold that for a second. And then go back down and fully stretched. And I think that has a bigger impact than anything else when it comes to calf training. Because a lot of times you see the guys in the gym, they got skinny calves, and they're putting the whole weight stack on the standing calf raise machine, and they're getting in there and they're doing these little tiny bouncy reps up and down, knees half bent, these little tiny short choppy reps in the middle where their calves aren't going all the way down, all the way up. I mean, yes, it's heavy. Yes, it's still providing stress on the body, but it's probably more of a back quad workout because they're doing like quarter squats, I don't know, back thrusts, and a little mini calf raise in there as well. But you see, like they're using a lot of muscle to try and muscle up the weight stack. And they think, because I'm using the whole weight stack, man, those calves got to grow. Whereas if they cut the weight in half, and then just really focus on stretching their calves. Like let the heel sink all the way down. Hold that fully stretched position. Then come right up onto the balls of your feet. Hold that fully peak contracted position. And just alternate. Stretch, contract. Stretch, contract. I mean, if you do that, first off, your reps are going to go down. Like let's just say you were normally doing 10, 15 reps or more for calves. If you start doing this stretch contract, your reps are going to be cut in half, but the quality of those reps are going to be much better. The time under tension is probably going to be the same or even more, because where you're slowing down the tempo, even though the number of reps isn't the same, like you're not getting 10 reps or 15 reps or whatever, but the time of the set duration, the time that you're actually under tension, is probably as much or more than it would be if you're doing the little choppy half reps in the middle. But the muscle stimulation is to the next level, because now you're training the calves where they're not accustomed to. Calves are rarely accustomed to being fully stretched. Like when you're walking and doing your day-to-day chores and moving around, climbing stairs and whatever, they're not getting a full stretch. So now you're providing that unique muscle stimulation. You're getting that full stretch. They're also not used to getting a full peak contraction. So you're providing that. And by getting those outside that comfort zone and getting out into those other ranges of motion, that's what's going to spur your calves on. And I've seen this a lot, like with my personal coaching students, even with my own training. Like that's the way when I did train calves regularly, that's the way I would train them. And it responds. I mean, you're going to maximize your genetic potential if you train them that way. And you also want to make sure that you're hitting calves with a straight leg exercise and a bent leg exercise. So, for example, have your knees locked out, like with the standing calf raise machine. And then also do another one with your knees bent at a 90-degree angle with the seated calf raise machine. When you do that, you're working the different muscles of the calves. You have the gastrocnemius and you have the soleus, and you need to incorporate both, right? You need to have a straight leg calf raise and a bent leg calf raise if you want to maximize development. Now, you can get in there and start experimenting with others. Like you can probably use like the leg press calf raise, which feels a bit different, or the donkey calf raise or whatever. But the two main ones are the standing calf raise with your legs locked out and straight, and the seated calf raise with your legs bent at 90 degrees. Those are the two main ones that you need to focus on. And again, fully stretched, fully peak contraction. And if you're doing that 3 times a week, I cannot see why your calves would not grow. I mean, I'm not saying you're going to have the biggest calves in the world or whatever, but you're going to make progress, right? And progress is always possible. That's the key here. All right, so hopefully that helps to elaborate and get you past this calf plateau that you're in. All right, let's move on. Let's see what else we've got there. Brian. Sweat the whistle there for a moment. Brian says, it's good to see you, buddy. I love the weight gainer meal plan. It's working. I gained 2 pounds, which is great for a high metabolism 46-year-old. Awesome. Good for you. And I love this because we all have different challenges. Like most people are struggling to lose weight, but there are some people who struggle to gain weight and struggle to gain quality weight. And obviously they're in the minority, but they are out there. And it's just as frustrating for someone who's underweight to try and gain quality muscular body weight and fill out their frame as it is for someone who's overweight to try and trim down. Now, obviously, we live in an overweight, obese society, so a lot of people can't appreciate, they look at someone who is underweight and say, oh, they're so lucky, right? They can eat whatever they want. They don't gain any weight. That's not an ideal situation as well, especially for guys. Like, being a skinny guy is not, an ego boost, right? Like there's a limit. Like there's that fine line. We want to fill out our frame with quality mass in the right places and minimize the fat gain. But again, kudos to you, Brian, right? You're making some progress there. You made some changes and things are working. So just goes to show you can still gain muscle in your 40s, right? Hence muscle after 40, right? So good for you. We got Lee Dunnigan joining in saying, the last 12 months, I've been doing cold water swimming to help with muscle recovery. I recently saw a video where you were buried in snow. It was brilliant. Not sure if there's any more to that or not. No. Okay. I'm going to elaborate on that. I've been, that video I did that's basically my opinion / experience of following the Wim Hof method. And that includes cold water exposure or cold exposure, different forms. I mean, cold water, like cold showers or cold baths, or If you're in the wintertime in snow, you can be out in the snow. But there's that, and there's also some breathing exercises there. I got out of that for a while, and I actually got back into it over the last, I'd say over the last 6 months or so. I've been really prioritizing that. So like a regular thing for me is like cold showers. And I find that it's good not only from helping with muscle recovery, but it's good for improving your circulation and also just improving your level of toughness, your ability to withstand discomfort, getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And that has such a huge impact because like most people these days, the reason why we feel stress and feel like, oh, the world's coming to an end, blah blah blah, is because we can't deal with discomfort. And the simple act of stuff like this, like cold water exposure, like getting a cold shower, that builds a level of toughness that it's hard to duplicate, right? Because it's something that you can build up your tolerance to it. And it's such an amazing thing because at first thought, like the idea of jumping into an ice cold shower, or like you've seen that video. What I'll do in the replay of this, I'll share a link to that video that I did where it was middle of winter, snowstorm, and I went out, laid down on my back deck, and I actually got my wife to shovel me in with snow. I was wearing nothing but my underwear, right? Just out there in the middle of winter in a snowstorm, and she buried me over with snow, and I stayed out there for like 5 minutes, just kind of like meditating in the cold snow. And there was another time I went up to the river. I went up to Manuel's River, middle of winter. I mean, the river was still running, right? Because it's moving water, but snow and ice all over the place. I went out there in my underwear and 5 minutes out in the ice cold river. And that builds a level of toughness and just mental fortitude. And also, I mean, the conditioning it takes to develop that. But the crazy thing is, like, you start off small, just like a progressive overload in the gym, and you can build up your tolerance to it. If you do it slow and steady, like nobody's just going to do that right from the get-go. Like you have to build it up slow. And I mean, it starts off like, okay, I'm going to get my normal warm shower. And then at the end, I'm just going to turn the water to a little bit uncomfortably cold and stay there for 30 seconds and then get back out. And then gradually it gets a little colder, a little longer. And it's just, building up day by day, week by week, month by month, almost like when you're in the gym, you just try to get an extra rep or add an extra 5 pounds. And before you know it, you're actually lifting some respectable weight. The same applies in a progressive overload fashion with cold exposure. That's how I did it. And you get to the point where you can handle that. And also, like, there's so many benefits to cold exposure, like from a circulation point of view, helping with muscle recovery, reducing inflammation, but you build up your tolerance to it. That's what I'm getting at. It still feels cold. Like cold is cold, just the same as heavy, but your tolerance and your ability to handle it goes up. Like when you go into the gym, for example, if you're lifting a 300-pound barbell, 300 pounds is 300 pounds. It's freaking heavy regardless of how strong you are, right? If like even the world's strongest man, like 300 pounds is still heavy. It's still a lot of weight. Cold is still cold. It never gets to the point where, oh, this feels warm. No, it's still freaking cold, but it's just you can handle it just the same as you can handle the heavier weight as you build up your strength and work capacity. And you'll be able to handle the cold. It still feels just as freaking cold as it does to someone who's never trained for cold exposure. But it's like you can handle it now. And it's such a weird sensation. And you get comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's an amazing skill to develop because we live in such a soft powder puff world these days where everyone's, oh, we want to make everybody comfortable. Don't make anybody uncomfortable. Don't make anybody feel left out, or, let's include and hugs and rainbows for everybody. Like you need to build that toughness because if not, real life is going to throw challenges your way. And it's good to be able to train for that. And exercise is one way. Like, people who say they hate going to the gym, and then you have other people who love the gym. It's because the ones who love it have learned to get comfortable being uncomfortable. In that sense, in their strength training, and they've rewired how they look at it, and the pain you feel through exertion and muscle fatigue and all that. They actually crave it, and they're comfortable in that situation, even though it's physically uncomfortable. they actually crave it and they're comfortable. So if you can develop that skill in so many areas, then life gets easier. It really does. It builds up your tolerance to handle the challenges in so many other areas of life. So like kudos to you, Lee, for doing that. I mean, cold water swimming, I mean, not only is it helping with your recovery, but it's helping to build you in so many other ways. You know, building your character, building your strength, building your ability to deal with stress, right? It's strengthening you from the inside out. And again, kudos to you for that. Much respect. And just for those of you who want to see that video, I'm going to dig it up real quick because I know it probably, some people probably don't give a shit about this, but some people are probably intrigued. So if you do a search for Lee Hayward Wim Hof, and WIMHOF, for those of you who don't know, like Wim Hof's got almost like his own cult following, if you will. But it's powerful stuff. It's my experiences with the Wim Hof method is the title of the video. But if you just do a search for Lee Hayward Wim Hof on YouTube, it'll pop up there. Where I'm to, I'm going to type it into our comments section there. Right. So it's the link has been posted, so you can go check that out afterwards. All right, where was I? I lost my place now where I typed that in. I was answering Lee's question about cold water swimming. Where was it? Okay, there we are. JKS, what are your thoughts on glutamine as a supplement for after workout recovery? Glutamine is a great supplement. I mean, it's basically a non-essential amino acid, but it's essential. And what I mean by non-essential is the body can manufacture it if needed. So the difference between an essential and a non-essential amino acid is the essential ones, the body cannot make them on its own. The non-essential ones, they're so essential that the body can actually manufacture them from other amino acids. So glutamine is an important amino acid for recovery and for so many levels. I mean, just go on Google and start searching, you know, benefits of glutamine. You know, there are oodles of pages and that. There's a lot of benefits to it. But yeah, you can supplement with that as part of your workout. You know, if you have like a post-workout recovery drink or something like that, or you could even take it as your pre-workout or intra-workout. Like I usually have amino acids during my workouts. So like when I'm mixing up my water bottle, I'll put in an amino acid mix, which contains glutamine as well as all the other essential amino acids. And I'll sip on that during my workout. So I'm a big advocate of amino acids. And you could certainly add glutamine to that mix as well. Whey protein is also a good source of glutamine. So if you're regularly consuming whey protein, then indirectly you're also getting glutamine through that. But there's nothing wrong with adding in extra pure glutamine to the mix as well. Right? It's going to have lots of benefits and virtually no drawbacks. You know, so like, yeah, by all means, you can certainly add that in for overall health and wellness. I mean, it's not just a muscle building supplement, but it's a health and wellness supplement as well. All right, what else we got there? Neil's joining in. Good morning, Lee. And of course, Neil's in the other corner of the globe, so it's morning for him and it's night for me. As you can tell, it's pitch black outside. Lee, your thoughts about jogging under the rain or snow? I've seen athletes do this, but people around me say it's bad. In your case, cycling. Well, it's bad in that it's not fun. Like, I don't think anybody loves getting caught in the rain or snow or whatever but hey, you just do it. Like, we don't all live in the land of sunshine and rainbows. Like, some days the weather sucks, but you still got to get out and get it done. Generally speaking, if it's pouring down rain, I'll probably do my cardio indoors because I just like this is my thought. Like, I love cycling and I do a lot of it, but it's different if I start in the dry and then get caught in the rain versus starting in the rain. Like, that just sucks. Now, I've done a lot of rides where I've had to start in the rain. Like this year, I've actually done 3 cycling races, and every single one of them was in the piss poor rain. And I'm talking like raining out of the heavens, like standing water on the road. every single race was just pouring down, right? Where is it? I got a picture of this up on my Facebook. Where is it? It was actually a cool picture from the last race I did. It was I'm going to share it if I can. Where the heck is that? Where is it to? Where's it to? Where's it to? Only take me a moment. There we go. I'm going to share that up. Where's my friggin' share screen button? Present. Share screen. Right. Share screen. There. That should be coming through. That was the last. Let me make that bigger. The last race I did. Pissing down rain. Right. Like everybody was drenched. And I mean, I do it. It's not fun, and I would much rather go out on a nice dry day and enjoy a bike ride, but sometimes you just got to get her done. Now, is it bad? No. I mean, obviously, you got to be careful because you don't want to, like obviously from a bike handling stand view, you got less traction. The visibility is not the same. So, I mean, you got to adjust your riding style to account for the weather conditions and everything else. But you can do it. I mean, as far as the athletic performance side of things, you're still going to get the same benefits. In fact, you're probably getting more benefits because it's making you comfortable being uncomfortable, as I was just mentioning earlier with the cold water exposure and stuff like that. So that kind of plays into role here, even though this was in the summertime, so it wasn't really cold. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. And in the wintertime, I do fat biking in the snow. So like I get outside and, it's obviously you dress for it, same as if you were going out skiing or, snowshoeing or whatever. You dress for the winter and accordingly. But no, it's not bad, like to get outside and exercise in poor weather. Right? Man up, get out, get her done. All right, I'll stop sharing that. There we go. Okay, there. People who say it's bad is because they don't want to do it, and they're just trying to look for an excuse to justify why they're not doing it. All right, moving on. We have Rocher, I think it is a strong back muscles directly related to a bigger bench press? That's a great question, and indirectly, yeah. Is it directly? Sort of. Like when you strengthen both sides, agonist and antagonist, opposing muscle groups, you make it all stronger. And very often you will see this. Like if someone is just training the pressing muscles, especially someone who's starting their workout journey and they're just thinking, I just want chest, shoulders, arms, abs, like just thinking of the front of the body. You will make some progress initially, the newbie gains, but those newbie gains are going to plateau. And then if you start training things in balance and proportion and you realize, in addition to the biceps, I also have a tricep back there. Wow, I better train that. Oh, in addition to my chest, I also got a back there. I better start training that. And now all of a sudden you start balancing it out and you're training opposing muscle groups. So you're training the agonist and the antagonist. You'll get bigger and stronger all over. And it will relate to a bigger bench press. And prime example, I mean, if you look at some of the guys who are the biggest and strongest bench pressers, there's a high likelihood they also got a big, strong back as well, right? Like it carries over and it provides that solid base and foundation. And whenever you're doing exercises, even though we say, okay, this is a chest exercise, this is a back exercise, a leg exercise, or whatever, the body is incorporating multiple muscle groups. Like there is truly no isolation exercise. You're bringing in all kinds of muscles as balancing and stabilizing and supporting muscle groups. So with the back, that is supporting the bench press, right? You're helping that. It provides a big solid base. And even especially for the setup, like if you got a thick, you got thick upper back muscles and the lats and everything else, and that helps to position you on the bench, like that can create a solid base for you to press off of. Versus if you've got a very thin, weak back, which is not going to provide much of a solid base to press off. So it does. It definitely does. And that's why you'll see powerlifters will train their backs, train the rows, and build up, the traps and the upper back and the lats and all that because they want that solid foundation. So absolutely. If you're stuck in a bench press plateau, prioritize your back as well. It could certainly indirectly help to bring that up. We have Kali joining in. He says, someone 177 height, 95 kilo, if he wants six-pack abs, is it most to get weight down until 78? All right. So I'm going to just break this down. If somebody wants six-pack abs, should they lose weight? Right? Generally, yes. That's the lighter you get, the leaner you get. Generally, yes. That's the direction you want to go. But these numbers are just guidelines, right? Like it doesn't mean, oh, if I hit 78 kilograms, I'm going to have six-pack abs. You might get six-pack abs at 80 kilograms. You might have to go down to 70 kilograms. It could be more or less, but generally speaking, if you've got extra fat, you look down and you got a layer of pudge around the midsection, you start losing weight. Generally, you're going to start losing some of that body fat, and you're going to get leaner and get better. This is a common thing I've often said, and I've experienced in bodybuilding. And I actually heard a pro bodybuilder back in the day. He did a seminar for us. This was back in 1997. I remember at one of our local competitions, the guest poser, and he also did a seminar as well. And it stood out in my mind. He said, when he feels skinny, he looks his best. And this is an IFBB pro. Like when he feels skinny, he looks his best. So generally speaking, with few exceptions, the leaner, the lighter, the better you're going to look from a bodybuilding aesthetic point of view. Now, when people hear that and you get to high level advanced bodybuilders and physique athletes, sometimes they can take it over the limit, and then they over diet and they end up getting too depleted and end up losing mass in the process. But that's rare, because in order for someone to diet so hard and so long and stick with it, it takes an incredible amount of willpower and dedication and discipline. Like anybody who's ever tried to go on a diet, you know how freaking hard it is. So for someone to diet to the point where they've lost all their excess body fat and now they're actually tapping into their lean mass, they're almost psycho in their level of willpower and discipline. Right? That's beyond normal pain tolerances and stuff. It's obsessive, right? But in the extreme cases, some people will take it to the extreme. But 99% of people out there who go on a diet will never have to worry about over dieting, in the long term. You can over diet in the short term by just starving yourself or just not eat or whatever, and which is stupid. But from a pure fat loss point of view, generally speaking, the leaner you get, the better you're going to look, and that's the secret to getting six-pack abs. It generally correlates. All right. Now, obviously, there's more to it than that. You also have to have some abdominal muscles underneath the body fat, so that when you get lean enough, you can actually see the muscle mass. But again, generally speaking, that is the answer. And I'll just use myself as an example. When I've competed, the years that I know that I've looked my best were generally the years that I was lighter. If I came in bigger and fuller and heavier, I probably felt better and felt bigger. But then when I looked at the pictures and the results afterwards, I'm like, nah, I was soft. The years that I felt skinny, I looked my best. So it kind of correlates again to what I was mentioning that I heard the former pro bodybuilder was sharing with us. When you feel skinny, you tend to look your best. When you feel big and full, you're probably holding water and you're a bit soft. All right, what else we got there? Al, oh my God. Goodbye. I'll just hang out here behind Al's question. All right, I'll read this and then pop it off the screens. Funny you mentioned that. I'm just getting back into lifting again after a serious back injury. Been doing full body workouts last month or so. The biggest lift that has dropped off was my bench press. I had great results with the Blast Your Bench program many years ago. Can't find a copy of it, but I'm thinking about jumping into it. Would you recommend it, or should I be hitting everything as much as possible? Blah, 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 blah. All right. Okay. Let me just hide that so you can see me. I can still see it in my side here. So he had a back injury, and he found that his bench press dropped off. So that's interesting. I mean, obviously, a back injury is going to cause everything to drop. I mean, you're injured, and the back is such a major muscle that impacts virtually everything. Like if your back is not healthy, you're not going to be able to do upper body work. You're not going to be able to do lower body work. Like that's going to hinder everything if you have a back injury. So, but it makes sense. Like you see, your bench went down even though you had a back injury, and you think, well, the chest or the back isn't a bench press muscle, so why is that going down? But it makes perfect sense because the body works as a unit, right? And you're asking about the Blast Your Bench program. That's still available. That's as old as dirt as far as the internet's concerned. Like I remember I launched the Blast Your Bench program back in '97 is when that program came out. It's since been modified and evolved and improved over the years many times over, but that is still available. If anybody wants to grab a copy of that, blastyourbench.com, it's still up there. Right? I mean, it's an old school program, but it still works. I mean, as far as should you follow it again, you can. And within the new updated versions of the program, we have two variations of the Blast Your Bench. One is a 5-day per week program, which is the original Blast Your Bench program, which I recommend for young guys. Like when I say young guys, if you're in your teens, 20s, early 30s, you probably get away with 5 days a week. If you're a bit older than that and your recovery is not as great, or you're working around aches, pains, and injuries or any setbacks, there's a modified version, which is a 3-day per week version of the Blast Your Bench. And a lot of my coaching students, especially guys who are, 40 plus, if they want to follow that program, they typically go for the 3-day per week variation of it. And it just allows for more rest and recovery between workouts. It's basically the same program. It's just we're spacing it out more to allow for extra rest recovery, because as you get older, it's not just your muscles need more recovery time, but it's your joints, tendons, and ligaments. And I find having like a day of rest in between strength training is very good from a longevity point of view, because not your muscles may recover and feel okay to train again, but sometimes the joints, tendons, and ligaments, they need that extra day just to fully rejuvenate, if you will, and prepare for the next workout. That's one thing I've found over the years. Like I don't get a lot of muscle soreness, but sometimes if I push it too hard, I feel it in the joints, the elbows and the knees and the shoulders. And, that's what I find holds me back. It's not always muscle soreness. It could be achy joint soreness. And by factoring in adequate rest and recovery between workouts, as well as optimal nutrition for joint health, that can certainly help to make your workouts more enjoyable and to prolong your activity and prolong your progress. So if you are going to go back into the Blast Your Bench program, Al, blastyourbench.com, you can grab a copy of it, but do the 3-day per week program. And once you start reading through, like we're in the section where it goes into detail explaining the actual tactics of the program, it talks about the 3-day per week variation. And that's what I would recommend for most guys. I would definitely recommend that, unless you're a young buck in your 20s or something, I would recommend the 3-day per week. All right. What else we got there? Sal's joining in saying, what do you think about periodization? 2 to 3 weeks, 3 RIR. 3 reps in reserve. I think that's probably what you mean. Then 2 to 3 weeks, 2 RIR, then 1 RIR, then 0 RIR, then 1 week deload. That's not really periodization in the true sense of periodization. Like from an athletic point of view, periodization is on a much longer, broader scale. Like I'll give you an example from a bodybuilding point of view, or even like off season and pre-contest. That's periodization. Like, okay, I'm going to build mass in the months in the off season, and then in the months leading up to the contest, I'm going to focus on losing weight and losing body fat and getting ripped. Periodization is longer than a few weeks. Like those are, there's different ways of breaking it up, but like those are little short cycles, if you will, training cycles where you're doing like, okay, I'm doing this for a couple weeks or whatever. And what you're basically explaining there is kind of like it's a way of just ramping up your intensity. So you're starting off with like a low intensity workout for a few weeks, and then over the several weeks into it, you're just building the intensity up week by week by week. And then once you build it to a peak, then you back it back off again. And that works. Like I actually had a program for my coaching students. I called it the volume ramping program. And we did it. It's not exactly like you mentioned there, but it's a similar concept of building up the intensity and building up the stress on the body. And then we do a back off. So how the volume ramping worked is we would do 3 sets per exercise for week 1, 4 sets for week 2, 5 sets for week 3. And then in the final week, we drop it back down to 3 sets again. So you'd build the volume up to a peak, drop it back down, and then build the volume up to a peak and drop it back down. And that was a great way to help overcome and get past plateaus. And each time you went through that cycle, you would generally be able to beat what you did the previous cycle. So like the next time you go back to the 3 sets, the weights that you use for 3 sets, you try to beat that the next time you did 3 sets. And the same thing when you bumped it up to 4 sets, the next time you did that 4-set workout, you try and beat what you did the previous phase through. So it was a great way to kind of build up, in that ramping phase where you build up to a peak and back off, build up to a peak and back off. What you're explaining there of the reps in reserve, it's kind of the same concept. Reps in reserve, you can still go by it, but that's going to vary literally from day to day based on your energy levels. Like some days you're going to feel more energetic than others, right? Like some days you're going to feel stronger, some days you're going to feel weaker. It's not always a consistent thing. So like what could be 3 reps in reserve one day might be 0 reps in reserve another day with the same workload, just based on your energy and your recovery. Like you will find that like you can still kind of go by it. It's basically a way to measure perceived exertion. It's just how hard do you think you're working? That's what reps in reserve basically means. But that can vary. It's not an exact thing. Whereas if you had some set measures or set parameters that you were going by, like the volume ramping thing that I did, where okay, week 1 we're doing 3 sets of each exercise. Week 2 we're doing 4 sets. Like those are concrete numbers that we can build on. But the reps in reserve is a lot of it is perceived exertion, and again, that's going to be that can vary just based on energy levels, recovery, nutrition. There's so many variables that come into it. Like if you had a big high carb meal the day before, you're probably going to feel stronger in the gym the day after. Whereas if you were extra busy, you ended up skipping a couple of meals and you didn't eat that well the day before, the next day you're probably going to feel flat and weak. If you had a really good night's sleep, you slept sound through the night, and the next day you're probably going to feel well rested and feel strong in the gym. If you slept like crap, I don't know, the neighbor's dog was barking and you had to get up to pee several times and you just didn't get a good night's sleep, your workout's probably going to suck the next day. So that's going to affect your reps in reserve, which has nothing to do with the actual workout itself. Is just your nutrition, your rest, and your recovery. So that's why it's, I'm not saying that you can't incorporate that into your program if you want, but it's good to be flexible with it. And I'm very flexible with my workouts. Like if I'm feeling strong and energetic, then okay, yeah, that's the day I'm going to push myself and have a more high intense workout. If I feel like I'm just running on empty, I didn't sleep well or I just don't feel it, I have no problems going through a active recovery workout. I'm going to do an easy session today, or maybe it's just going to be a cardio day and low intensity cardio, right? So I'm very intuitive with my training because, and this is something that you will build over time. I mean, I know it's kind of hard when someone's brand new to be intuitive, but as you get into the routine, you're just going to know of, okay, today I'm feeling strong. Today I can push it hard. And then the other days you're going to say, you know what? I'm not feeling fully recovered today. Today's an easy day. I'm not going to try and push it hard. And what you'll find is as you progress through your training, you have to give yourself permission to do those easy workouts. And that's one of the key things we're seeing with a lot of, especially in the world of athletic performance. People are doing more low intensity training and are okay with it. Like, you don't have to go out there and kill yourself every single workout. It's actually there's advantages to doing those low intensity workouts and having that consistency and that base, right? Like, the polarized training is a common term used, especially in the world of endurance sports, where the majority of your workouts are done at lower intensity, and then a smaller percentage of your workouts are done at high intensity. And we try to have this gap. So a lot of low intensity training and then some high intensity training. So the like polar opposites, polarized training, they refer to it. Whereas a lot of people, they're always in the middle, right? They're never really doing low intensity and they're never really doing high, right? They're always in the middle. And there's advantages of that as well. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes you can actually make better gains if you create, okay, today is it's a low intensity day, right? I'm going to do it easy. I'm not going to kill myself. Today, this is a high intensity day. I'm feeling strong. I'm going to empty the tank. I'm going to shoot for a new PR today, right? Having that gap can sometimes lead to better results. And that's some of the common things we're seeing in the world of sports performance, especially, is the idea of this polarized training, where you're not setting a record every single day, you're doing the majority of your training at a sub maximal intensity, but you're building that base, you're building that foundation, so that when you have a bigger base, then ultimately you can build a bigger peak at the top as well. So then you can have a higher peak when you do have those high intensity days. All right. Anyway, guys, I'm going to get ready and include this up. I know I promised an hour and I end up going way over, and there's still a shit ton of questions coming through. And we're an hour and 26 minutes in already. And my wife's got dinner on the table out there, and she knows me well enough now. When I say, yeah, I'm going to go in and do an hour-long video chat, she says, yeah, okay, that means an hour and a half. Right? But still, we're getting close to the hour and a half. So I actually have to clue this up and get ready for dinner because I don't want to keep my family waiting. That is a priority. I want to enjoy some quality time with the family at the end of the week. And hopefully you can respect that. So, guys, thanks for tuning in. Second now, there we go. Shows that up. Thanks for tuning in. Again, I always enjoy doing these video chats. And the reason they go long is because I do enjoy it. I do enjoy this catch up at the end of the week where we can kind of just hang out, have our live Q&A, shoot the breeze, and hopefully you got some value from it. And if there's anything that you want to elaborate on more of, like if I didn't get to your question, or if there's something that you want to elaborate more on, feel free to reach out to me, right? You can message me through Facebook. You can send me an email. The contact information's down in the description below this video, so you can go check that out. And if you haven't already done so, make sure to sign up for the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Facebook group as well. We got a group on Facebook. It's the Total Fitness Bodybuilding group. Just do a search for it. You'll find it. Request to join the group. And that's a great way to keep the conversation going throughout the week and just share how things are going. And of course, you can ask questions. And a lot of people are in there sharing their workouts, sharing progress, and basically keeping the conversation going in between these live Q&A. So if you haven't already done so, head on over to Facebook if you're active over there, and request access to the Total Fitness Bodybuilding group. And we'll keep the conversation going there. All right, I'm going to clue it up. Have yourself a fantastic weekend, and I look forward to chatting to you again next week. Same time, same place. Take care. Over and out.